30 years ago, one of the biggest names in music was shot dead in Las Vegas. To this day, the question, who killed Tupac Shakur, remains one of the most enduring mysteries in pop culture history, and no one has ever been charged. That is, until now.
A man named Dwayne Keefe D. Davis is arrested and charged, accused of orchestrating Tupac's murder, revenge for an alleged attack on his nephew.
On today's episode, we're breaking down who Tupac was, what happened the night he died, and why the man accused of orchestrating it is only facing a jury now.
Elliot, I'm really thrilled to be talking about this today.
Good.
Teenage Emma would be stoked. I had a real West Coast 90s hip-hop phase. And I went deep on the conspiracies around this assassination, the whole thing. For our younger listeners and those who might not remember, and to be clear, I wasn't a teenager in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 2010s. But for anyone who might not be so familiar with this case, let's start from the top. Who was Tupac Shakur?
I'm so glad that we have our West Coast correspondent on with us today. I didn't know that about you. That actually surprises me.
Thanks for having me.
So Tupac was one of the most influential rappers in the 90s, and he's kind of regarded as actually one of the most influential musicians of all time. He grew up in New York and California, so he spent time in both. And an interesting fact that I found when I was researching this is his birth name was Lassane Parish Crooks, and he was surnamed after his mother's then girlfriend.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep, fun facts. And he was later rechristened as Tupac Shakur by his mother, which was actually in honor of Tupac Amaru II, who is a descendant of the last Inca ruler. And he was actually executed in Peru in the 1700s after a revolt against the Spanish rule.
For anyone listening to this as an audio, not video podcast, my jaw is on the floor. My mouth is wide open. What?
Yeah, so it sounds crazy, but it's actually because his mother was really involved in the Black Panthers movement. She was very much an activist, and she really wanted to give him this name that reflected rebellion.
I love that. That is so cool. They are like, I do just want to jump in and say that as much of a bad rap as hip hop gets for being misogynistic in its lyrics, like Tupac is kind of held in an esteem of, there are a couple of songs about his mom, about women, female empowerment, so ahead of his time.
Yeah, he actually had a song called Dear Mama that was kind of received as a turning point where he showed a little bit of softness.
Yes, absolutely.
So people might recognize him from albums like All Eyes on Me and Me Against the World. That music did address things like social injustice and especially the marginalization of Black people in America. As you mentioned, it did dip into very violent lyrics at some points in time. Now, he also had another life as an actor, and his most famous role was in the film Poetic Justice, where he was performing across from Janet Jackson.
Iconic.
Yeah, iconic. Now, in 1994, Tupac was convicted in a sexual assault case, and he spent 9 months in prison until he was bailed out on appeal.
Okay.
Now, important to note, when he died, he was still technically convicted on appeal. So we never got to the end of what happened with that case.
Right.
And all of this to say is he had a very short time in the limelight. Everything that I've just gone through happened between 1991 when he put his first album out and 1996 when he was killed.
Wow. I think people forget how young he was when he died as well because
25.
of that huge impact that he had on hip-hop culture, popular culture, the rap scene. 25 years old is so young.
Yeah, really young.
So this was all happening during a very high-profile time in hip-hop. There were warring artists. We had the East Coast, West Coast beef. There was a very strong correlation between hip-hop music and, I guess, gang crime, drug abuse. It has to be said that this is the kind of era that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like the Kendrick and Drake of the 90s, except with much higher stakes.
Yeah, a lot more hardcore. Like rappers got shot all the time.
Yes, they weren't just like posting shady things on social media and, you know, dropping the occasional diss track. Like it was actual life or death.
Yes,
and
literally.
oftentimes death in what I'm about to talk about.
Rest in peace, Biggie.
Yes, exactly. So Tupac was signed to Death Row Records, which was based in LA. West Coast. And that was run by Suge Knight. Now, he's a really important figure in this case, and we're going to talk a bit more about him later.
Yep, very notorious. Anyone that's ever listened to Eminem's music might be familiar with Suge Knight. Couple references there. Very famous beef for another day.
Now, Death Row had links to the Bloods. They were one of the two main rival gangs operating in LA at the time, the other being the Crips. Yep. Now, as we've talked about, the label was embroiled in this kind of East Coast, West Coast beef. That was between them and another label called Bad Boy Records, which was where Notorious B.I.G. / Biggie Smalls was signed. And that label was run by Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs. And
who is currently behind bars.
Yes, we've spoken about him a lot on this podcast over the past year or two. And at the time, he was actually known as Puff Daddy. He's had so many rebrands over the years.
But I think that that's an important point because at the time in hip-hop culture, really it was like Biggie, Diddy, Tupac, Jay-Z coming through, and those rivalries between East Coast and West Coast were significant.
Yes, and I think the best way to paint this picture is around an incident that happened in 1994 when Tupac was shot 5 times in a building in New York.
And that's not the shooting that killed him.
No. Now, this is a separate shooting that he survived. He actually went on to accuse Biggie and Diddy of knowing about this shooting and maybe even having a role in it, and he released a song about it. So that's all to say that by 1996, there's this real tension between these two camps, and it's not just about the music that they're putting out.
Yeah, there are literal bullet wounds, scars in Tupac's body before he's shot that second time. So let's go there to the night he actually died. What happened? What do we know?
So it was the 7th of September, 1996. Tupac was in Las Vegas for a fight between Mike Tyson and another boxer. It lasted about 109 seconds, so a very short fight. Yep. I'd be annoyed, actually.
109 seconds?
Yeah, give me my money
Assuming
back.
Mike Tyson won.
Yes, he did.
Got it.
Yeah. And he was there with Suge Knight, who, as I mentioned earlier, was the head of the record label that Tupac was signed to.
Yeah.
Now, after the fight, Suge Knight, Tupac and their entourage get into a brawl with a guy called Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand Casino. So this took place in the lobby. It's caught on camera. We'll probably put the footage up now. It's been played a lot of times every time Tupac is mentioned because this is the night of his death.
Yep, some of the last footage that we have of him alive.
Exactly. Now, this guy that I've just mentioned, Orlando Anderson, he was linked to the Crips, which, as I mentioned, was the rival gang to the Bloods who had the connection to Tupac's label.
Yeah.
Are you following?
So Tupac blood affiliated.
Yeah.
This guy that he gets into a fight with at the casino in Vegas, Crip affiliated.
Exactly.
So rival gangs.
Yes. Now, hours later, Tupac's driving in a car with Suge Knight and they stop at a red light. At that point in time, another car pulls up. It's famously a white Cadillac, and someone opens fire. Tupac's hit 4 times. Knight gets a graze from a bullet.
Yeah.
And about 6 days later, Tupac dies in hospital, as we mentioned, age 25.
And no one was arrested at the time.
Yeah, so incredibly, no one was arrested for decades, actually. Anderson, the guy who is believed to be the shooter most popularly, he was killed in an unrelated shooting in 1998, so 2 years later. Police weren't able to charge or prosecute him or anything because they didn't have any hard physical evidence. They were missing the gun and they were missing the car. They couldn't find either of those things. They obviously also were struggling to find people that could testify because snitches get stitches.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with the kind of fever pitch of gang wars, the hip hop scene being as it was, you just could never expect that anyone who knew anything was going to say anything.
No. And obviously investigators had their theories about what happened, but it did stay a cold case for almost 30 years.
Hey, my name is Scott and I am the commercial video lead here at The Daily Yaus. So when I'm not working on my Aussie dialect, forgetting to update my family back home in the UK, or struggling to figure out where it's safe to swim here, I'm helping our commercial team create content that connects with you. We're an independent media company, which is incredible, but it also means we rely on audience growth and commercial partnerships to expand our business. That means more journalists, higher quality production, and news delivered the way you love it. We need you to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. And thank you for being part of the TDA community.
Okay, so Elliot, you have described the explosive career of Tupac from the early 90s up until his death in 1996, became a force in hip-hop, a global sensation, met a violent, untimely death at the age of 25. It's a death that's become pop culture lore, inspired conspiracy theories around the world, and it's now back in the spotlight because someone did end up getting charged, right?
Yeah. His name's Dwayne Davis. He goes by Keefe D. At this point in time, he's 63, and he was a leader of the Crips, the street gang that we were just talking about earlier.
Yep.
Now, the alleged shooter, Orlando Anderson, he was actually Davis's nephew. So there's a familial connection there as well.
And Anderson is the guy that got in the fight with Tupac on CCTV at the casino the night of that fight. Yeah. And then was shot himself a few years later.
Yes.
So how did prosecutors get to the point of actually being able to bring charges against Davis? Why him and why now?
This is the craziest part of the story. You're going to love this. So in 2019, Davis wrote a memoir basically laying out his alleged role in the shooting. In the introduction to that book, he says, "I'm one of the only living eyewitnesses to Tupac's killing."
Okay.
Yep. He also gave multiple interviews about that night, and we'll play a little bit of one now.
You said the shots came from the back. Who shot Tupac?
To keep it from the cold of the streets. It just came from the backseat, bro.
Now, as you can hear in that clip and from that little excerpt that I just read, it's very clear that he's implying that he was there and directly involved in the murder. And a detective basically used that book as evidence to bring a whole new case and have him indicted. And that happened in September 2023.
Wow. Hang on. Okay, so this guy's nephew was the kind of suspect number one.
Yes.
He died, and then he, for lack of a better term, ran his mouth, wrote a book, did interviews, connecting himself directly to the murder. I mean, it's not really shock horror that charges were eventually brought, or at the very least that this was investigated, right?
Yeah, and the charges that they're bringing aren't so much that he fired the gun. They're saying that he gave his nephew the gun and that he instructed him to do the killing. So they're kind of trying to directly tie him to the crime. Importantly, in 2008, Davis actually told a federal task force his version of events, and it very closely aligns with what was published in the book as well. Now, the reason he wasn't charged back then was he was actually offered what's called a proffer agreement, which basically means the police can't pursue any charges based on what you tell them.
Like immunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so often in complicated trials, someone might say, I'll tell you what you need to know, or I'll give you some evidence if you offer me immunity, if you protect me from proceedings.
Yes, and he thought that he just had blanket immunity for the rest of his life.
Oh, so that's why he wrote the book.
Exactly.
He thought he had carte blanche immunity, but not the case.
But that's not true. The immunity only applies to the testimony that he gave police, but him then going on later down the line and publicly admitting to all this stuff basically gave prosecutors the chance to open it back up.
I imagine it also kind of starts to wander into proceeds of crime territory. If you're profiting from a book that ties you to a murder, that would be concerning for prosecutors too.
Yeah.
So, Elliot, that's all been unfolding for quite a few years now. He's been in custody since 2023.
Yeah.
We're 3 years later. So where is the case at now?
So they've planned for a very lengthy trial. It's predicted to go for at least a month, possibly more. They're going to hear from roughly 45 witnesses.
Wow.
And where we're up to now is they're in the jury selection process, which, as you can imagine, is going to take some time because a lot of people have strong feelings about this case already.
Yep.
And they're going to have to work through trying to get an unbiased group of people together.
That will be so hard. I mean, I suppose a young jury might be what they're after, given that this is a 30-year-old murder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be hard to find someone, especially in Vegas where these proceedings are taking place.
Yes.
Vegas is famously the scene of the crime.
Yep.
That is no easy task, right?
No, not at all. And I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but Davis has pled not guilty. So he's saying he didn't do it. He actually argues that he wasn't even in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting.
Right.
And his defense argues that everything he said in the book was actually made up and that he was just struggling for money at the time. And so he was embellishing certain details and, elaborating the truth a little bit, much like what is done in hip hop music.
Yep. Okay. Fair. Yeah. Got it. Poetic justice.
Yes, exactly. And if the jury does find him to be guilty, he will face a maximum sentence of life in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about serious charges.
Yeah.
Elliot, you mentioned just before that there are dozens of witnesses who are expected to take the stand in these proceedings. Are any of them names we might be familiar with? Who are we expecting to take the stand?
So Suge Knight is expected to testify, which is interesting because in the past he outright said, I will never testify in a case on this matter.
Right.
He is actually currently serving prison time for separate charges, so he will most likely be given that from prison via video link.
Mm-hmm.
Another person in prison at the moment who's expected to testify is Diddy.
Wow.
Yeah.
This case, I mean, apart from the fact that at the end of the day, we're talking about the murder of a young man at the peak of his game and career being killed violently, this case has so many intriguing makings of just a really great story, right?
I just think every day we're going to get a new headline that
Yeah.
I think will, reveal a little bit more of the truth of what happened on that night.
So fascinating. Elliot, before we finish, I think it would be remiss of us not to address the conspiracy theories
Of course.
that have evolved, grown, intensified over the years. There are people on this earth, many of them, who genuinely believe that Tupac lives. What do they think happened?
Well, I actually went down a little bit of a YouTube rabbit hole when I was researching this story. And honestly, it's pretty convincing on a lot of fronts for some of these conspiracy theories. I've tried to draw them into buckets of what are the most popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
The main one is that Tupac is alive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that he faked his death basically because, there was all these issues going on at the time. He was facing increasing public scrutiny over, this big public beef that he had going on.
Yeah.
He also had this pending appeal on this sexual assault charge. So some fans think that he faked his death that night and then escaped to Cuba specifically.
Okay.
He's allegedly been spotted there many times over the past couple of decades.
Thinking that he could avoid jail time or avoid being assassinated due to the legal stuff going on for him and the threats to his safety at the time.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of people point to what his mum said when it was announced that he had died. She said he's, quote, chosen to leave quietly.
That's so sus.
Yes,
Not
ambiguous.
to feed the conspiracy beast. I know there are a lot of people, Elliot, who also think Suge Knight did it.
Yeah.
He is a man who has a proven track record of being extremely violent. He's in jail right now.
Yeah.
Is there any merit to that one?
Well, I mean, he was in the car at the time. He did cop a little bit of a bullet.
Yeah.
But the theories say that he actually owed Tupac millions in royalties or that he wanted to stop him from leaving the label.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of orchestrated this so he could continue to profit from Tupac's legacies over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, there's actually been 7 Tupac albums since his death. So
Yeah, I wanted to flag that because every time the conspiracy theory dies down, there seemed to be more music that got released. I remember around the Coachella, the iconic hologram technology that was used for that Tupac set, that really reignited a lot of the conspiracy theories because there's just so much disbelief around the volume of unreleased music from that time.
Now, obviously, he has denied that he did it. Another person who has denied that he had anything to do with it is Diddy, and that is kind of the third big theory.
Yep.
Now, Davis actually told police in his 2008 testimony that Diddy had ordered it. And it's likely that that's something that we're going to hear more about throughout the course of this trial as he tries to deflect blame onto other people.
There's also always going to be the unanswered question of if Biggie orchestrated it, the Notorious B.I.G., who is now dead but was alive at the time.
Yeah, they have a very tragic story because they actually began as friends and then ended up as very public feuding enemies.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah.
So obviously it goes without saying, Elliot, none of these conspiracy theories have actually been proven. They're called conspiracy theories for that very reason.
Yeah.
These are just kind of wild fan theories.
Yeah.
But we will continue to watch this one closely. I think it crosses many generations. It's a super interesting case. So thank you for breaking that down for us today.
Thanks, Sam.
It's tidbit time. I have a quick one for you.
Please.
When I say Bumble, what is the first thing you think of about that app?
For the girls.
For the girlies.
It's going to be a big one.
Dating app Bumble, founded in 2014. Its core selling point was that women are the first ones to start the conversation after a match.
Yes, famously.
Well, get rid of that because it's gone. It's scrapped. Bumble has announced that it's scrapping the women start the conversation thing. Men can now start the chat.
Wait, what? What is the point of that app then?
Well, it's a great question. Bumble says that it did its own research, its own surveys, and according to its data, 66% of female respondents said that they prefer for men to send the first message. Many said that they would feel like there was less pressure on the dating experience if men made the first move. So I guess it's abandoning its entire core purpose / selling point to expand it. They're also increasing the chat window from 24 hours to 72 hours. So you know how previously you make a match or you match with someone, you only have 24 hours to start the conversation. Now anyone can start the chat and they have 72 hours to do so. That allegedly is in response to feedback that oftentimes connections were missed just because life is busy and people were overwhelmed with life and that they wanted a longer opportunity to begin the conversation. So very interesting. It wasn't on my bingo card, but there you go. Bumble is just like all other dating apps now.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Were you ever on Bumble?
Yes, I met my future husband on Bumble.
What? Okay, success story.
Success story.
Did you find it to be a good user experience that it was female first?
Yes, I preferred it very much so. I think I liked having the control over like what the starting point of the chat would be as opposed to just every other app being like, hey, how are you? Good.
Yeah, okay, well then shame. We're
For
losing
shame, Bumble.
All right, I think that's all we've got time for today.
That's it. Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you all for listening to today's episode. We'll be back in your headphones this afternoon with the headlines. Until then, have a good rest of the day.